What's going on, whiskey nerds? I'm Mike, and it's time for another Hardcorn pour.
All right, welcome back everybody. Glad you could be here with me today. Today I'd like to talk about some good options if you are new to drinking bourbon. Whether you're brand new into the bourbon drinking game or you're like myself and have been drinking whiskey and bourbon for decades, but are just now getting into the full experience of what bourbon is. It can be a little overwhelming when you walk in the liquor store. There's so many options. You know, when I go in, I know what I like because I've been drinking it for years. But to expand on that, I don't know if I should be buying only top shelf stuff, if I should strictly be staying away from the bottom shelf because that's the trash bourbon down there. Hopefully today, by the end of this video, I will have provided kind of a good starting point on some budget-friendly bourbons to try so you can acclimate your palate and find out what you really enjoy before you go spending hundreds of dollars on a bottle of whiskey. Before we get started, I think it's important to have the proper hardware to drink bourbon to get the full experience out of it. If you've got Glencairns or you know someone with some Glencairns, go pick one up. If you can't get one quite yet, if you've got a brandy snifter or a wine glass, pretty much anything with this bell-shaped bottom that has a taper to help concentrate the aromas, because nosing is a big part of the experience of drinking bourbon. It's not all about the taste, though mostly. But the nosing, the smelling, the scents that you pick out of it is a lot of it. So make sure you get the right hardware before you get started. Big recommendation for sure. There were a couple criteria that I wanted to try to hold to for today's video. One being price for a bottle. You don't want to go in and spend $100 on your first bottle of bourbon and not even know if you're going to like it. So one of the criteria today is all of the bottles featured are going to be $40 or less for a 750 milliliter bottle. Another thing is you don't, especially if you've never had bourbon before, you don't want to grab anything that's 120 proof. It could absolutely ruin your experience right out of the gate. So be fair to yourself. I'm going to try to be fair to you as well. Everything in today's lineup is 100 proof or under. And lastly, I didn't want to include anything that is super rare or hard to find. There is a bonus that we'll cover at the very end of the video, but for the most part, everything in today's main lineup is shelf stable, so you can go in just about anywhere and find it at any time. So let's get started with our first bottle. Early Times Bottled in Bond. This is the only bottle on my list that is in a numeric order for a reason. Early Times Bottled in Bond is just a phenomenal drink of whiskey. Early Times Bottled in Bond retails for about $26 for a liter. It's aged for at least 4 years, comes in at 100 proof with a mash bill of 79% corn, 11% rye, and 10% malted barley. Early Times Bottled in Bond is what I'm going to call and recommend you use as your baseline bourbon. It's got your classic caramels, vanillas, rye spice, oak, a little smokiness to it from the barrel char, but it's so well put together that it's complex in the fact that there's so many different flavors that you can pull out of it, yet simple at the same time because they're all so pronounced and well balanced that they're really easy to pick up on. So I think this is a really great place to start to begin training your palate to be able to pick out different nuances in different whiskeys. Excuse me, need some water here. So yes, find your bottle, Early Times Bottled and Bond, and get started there. Highly recommended. That's actually what I'm drinking on today. Fantastic, fantastic bourbon. I don't know that there is going to be a better bargain for what you're getting anywhere out there. So give some Early Times a shot, most definitely. Okay, so the next bottle is going to kind of get us into our oaky notes, if you will, that kind of come forth front and center. Second bottle is going to be Elijah Craig's Small Batch. Elijah Craig's Small Batch retails for about $35 for a 750 milliliter bottle. It's aged 8 to 12 years and comes in at 94 proof with a mash bill of 78% corn, 10% rye, 12% malted barley. Elijah Craig's Small Batch is going to kind of introduce your palate to a strong, sweet, oaky note. You're going to find it in a lot of different bourbons. So I think for the price point and the quality of the whiskey, this is a great place to start getting used to the oaky flavors that a lot of other bourbons are going to have. Next on our list is going to be Evan Williams Bottled and Bond. Man, excuse me. I don't know what my problem is today. Evan Williams Bottled and Bond retails for about $20 for a 750 milliliter bottle. It's aged at least 4 years, comes in at 100 proof with a mash bill of 78% corn, 10% rye, 12% malted barley. Evan Williams Bottled and Bond is going to introduce you into a little bit more of the harsh oak coming in front and center. It's very robust. It's a very in-your-face bourbon. Not everybody likes it. One of my best friends, Matt, who actually got me started on this whiskey journey, this is his go-to. I like it a lot. It's not my number one go-to, but I think it's fair to introduce it to your palate to see if this is something you may or may not like. Don't pass up Evan Williams Bottled and Bond. At least give it a shot. Our fourth bottle today is going to be Old Forester 86. Old Forester 86 retails for about $26 for a 750 milliliter bottle. It's aged for 4 years and comes in at 86 proof with a mash bill of 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% malted barley. Old Forester 86 is going to kind of introduce you into sweet rye being center stage. Old Forester, all of the Old Forester lines are just absolutely amazing. You get your classic caramels, vanillas. One of my favorite things about Old Forester is the banana note. I don't get it on every single bottle, but more times than not, I get a really nice banana note and almost like a toasted marshmallow. It's absolutely fantastic. Old Forester 1920 is one of my favorite pours. Make sure you at least try the Old Forester line. There's just so many incredible bottles in their lineup. So Old Forester 86. Next bottle we have is going to be 1792 Small Batch. $17.92 Small Batch retails for about $31 for a 750 milliliter bottle. It's believed to be aged somewhere between 7 and 8 years and comes in at 93.7 proof. Supposedly their mash bill, they're a little secretive on their stuff, but supposedly their mash bill is 74% corn, 18% rye, 8% malted barley. 1792 small batch is going to introduce you more into your spicy rye flavor profile. It's a very sweet bourbon, but the rye spice is really front and center. Has the same percentage of rye that the Old Forester 86 does. It just comes across a lot different. That's why I want to include them both. The Old Forester is more of a sweet rye, and though 1792 small batch is very sweet bourbon, the rye comes across more pronounced and more spicy. It will introduce you into higher rye bourbons or even straight ryes themselves. So make sure you at least grab a bottle of 1792 small batch. The next bottle on our list, and this one comes after 1792 for a reason, is going to be Maker's Mark, just their traditional plain label Maker's Mark bourbon whiskey. Maker's Mark retails for about $33 for a 750 milliliter bottle. It's aged between 6 to 7 years, comes in at 90 proof with a mash bill of 70% corn, 16% soft red winter wheat, and 14% malted barley. So I have Maker's Mark after 1792. I highly recommend you get both of these bottles. Maker's Mark is going to help you, especially if you side by side this with 1792 small batch. It's going to help your palate to pick up on the differences between rye spice and proof spice. Maker's Mark has no rye, but it still comes across a bit spicy, but that's from the proof. It uses wheat instead of rye. So I think having these two side by side are two great tools to start training your palate to pick up the difference between, is this a high rye that I'm picking up on, or is this a proof thing that I'm picking up on? So make sure you grab yourself a bottle of Maker's Mark. Okay, that is 5, 6, number 7 on our list. It's going to be Knob Creek 9-year. Knob Creek 9-year retails for about $37 for a 750 milliliter bottle. Its age stated at 9 years and comes in at 100 proof. The best I could find, the mash bill is 75% corn, 13% rye, 12% malted barley. Knob Creek 9 is going to introduce you into a nutty flavor profile. It's very nutty. It's made by Jim Beam. A lot of their stuff has a very similar flavor profile. But for the price, this is a great place to start. It's lower in proof, but that nuttiness, kind of like a peanut butter kind of flavor, is very pronounced, very front and center. It's a pretty easy drinker, but it will kind of train your palate and see if you like that kind of flavor profile. Some people love it, some people hate it. If you do like Knob Creek 9-year at the 100 proof, I believe it's their single barrel. Yes, their single barrel comes in 120 proof. If you like that, you can work your way up into Booker's and Baker's and candlestick make. No, there's no candlestick makers, but you can explore the rest of the Jim Beam line. Really good buy, very solid pour. Definitely do yourself a favor and pick up a bottle of Knob Creek 9 as well. Last on our list is one of the more interesting bottles in today's lineup. It's going to be Four Roses small batch. Four Roses small batch retails for about $35 for a 750 milliliter bottle. It's aged 6 to 7 years, comes in at 90 proof with a blend of 75% corn, 20% rye, and 5% malted barley, and 60% corn, 35% rye, and 5% malted barley. I had to include Four Roses in today's lineup because it's one of the more unique distillers in that they have 2 solid mash bills and 5 different yeast strains. So they essentially have 10 different profiles coming out of Four Roses Distillery. This is a blend of 4 of those mash bills, both mash bills, each with 2 different two different yeast strains. It's really interesting to explore the different combinations that Four Roses has to offer. So make sure you don't pass up on Four Roses. It's a great experience to go in and hunt down the different combinations of mash bills and yeast strains. It's a really easy drinker. If you could call drinking a bourbon neat refreshing, this one's gonna foot the bill. It's really nice drinking when it's warm outside. My friends in Texas, make sure you've got some Four Roses. But yeah, definitely don't pass up on the Four Roses. It's a great experience, really easy to drink, very sweet, a little bit fruit forward, just a caramel bomb on the nose. I think you'll all really enjoy the Four Roses line. All right, now, last bottle as promised, a little bonus here. I didn't think I could do any justice at all to this list without including this last bottle, but it is allocated in some places. It's marked up in a lot of other places where it is easier to find. But if you can find a bottle of Buffalo Trace, make sure you pick one up. Buffalo Trace retails for about $28 for a 750 milliliter bottle. It's aged 6 to 8 years and comes in at 90 proof. And this uses Buffalo Trace's Mash Bill 1, which is believed to be 75% corn, 8% rye, and 17% malted barley. This is another, kind of like the early times bottled and bond, this is another extremely well put together bourbon. It's a little softer than the early times. It's definitely lower proof, but it's got just tons of flavor. A little muted down, but there's tons of different flavors that you can pick up on. It's a very enjoyable, neat sipping whiskey. If you can find it, definitely do yourself a favor and pick up a bottle of Buffalo Trace. Well, I think that's about gonna wrap things up for today. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like, even consider subscribing. I would really appreciate that. And if I missed anything today, I know I didn't have any Woodford Reserve to throw in here. Would have loved to feature some Woodford Reserve. But if there's anything I left out, please leave a comment. I'd love to talk back and forth with you in the comment section. And I think that's about gonna wrap it up. Remember, don't eat tomatoes because they're gross. That's the devil's fruit. Anyway, go grab yourself a Hardcorn pour.